Hey, Arnie here. I'm a freshman at college, and I guess you could call me a nerd. I mean, I'm fascinated by computers and techie stuff, and I'm majoring in computer science. I'm just a regular guy who would much rather spend my free time on my computer than out partying. I don't really care about my appearance. As I see it, clothes are clothes. So a slouchy t-shirt and jeans will do me. I also suck at socializing. I clam up and just end up talking nonsense. I guess that's why I usually stick to being in my own computer guy bubble. Well, at least I did until I met Camilla. I'd never had a girlfriend before, which, given my awkwardness, was no great surprise. My first meeting with Camilla, well, it didn't go all that well. I was running late for my study group in the library. So I was rushing up the stairs and I bumped straight into Camilla, who was reading a book while walking down the stairs. I watched on horrified as she fell down the stairs. She fractured her ankle, and I felt so guilty and blamed myself for this. After that, I tried being the good guy and helping her out. I offered to carry her bag to class, but she huffed out. "Could you please stay away from me? I don't need your help, okay?" Then she glared at me. Another time I bumped into Camilla while she was sitting on the grass and passionately reading Twilight. So I bought her a signed copy of the second book in the series. She stuck her nose up at me, told me that book was so last decade, then limped off. I guess she was still mad at me for the accident. But then the next time I saw her, she was reading the book I gave her. She giggled, then said to me, "Okay, this is actually a really neat gift, thanks." After that, we started talking more, and I even helped her out with her studying. I'd never met a girl like Camilla before. She was so gentle, girly, and pretty. But like my thing was computers, her thing was books. She adored them, and she always had her head in a book. I admired this about her. A girl who reads as many books as she did must have a beautiful soul. I found myself falling for her, but being the awkward guy I am, I didn't think I stood a chance. Then one time after I'd finished helping her study, she leaned over and kissed me. Trust me, no one was as shocked about this as me. Not long after, we became an official couple, and at first everything was great. However, Camilla gradually became more and more addicted to her reading. She loved romance fiction, from the classics such as Pride and Prejudice, to more modern affairs such as The Fault in Our Stars. She loved them all. There were days she got so caught up in these fictional worlds that she read from night till early next morning, and she even missed college because she was too tired to go. We went to the library a lot to study together. While I studied, she usually stared dreamily out the window, lost in whatever fictional world was currently occupying her mind. And when I'd called her name, she never answered. After she finished each book, she went into this depressive state. It's like she couldn't deal with reality. After she'd finished reading The Notebook, she moaned that I wasn't handsome and attentive like Noah. I tried to ignore her, but then she finished reading the second book in the To All the Boys I've Loved Before series and shouted at me that Peter not only pampers his girlfriend, but he also plays sports and has a six-pack. She told me I should start working out and stop eating so much chocolate. Okay, so her comment did hurt. I always sucked at sports and was self-conscious about my lanky frame. So I started going to the gym to please Camilla. She seemed happy about this and mentioned something about being proud of having a boyfriend who was good at both studying and sports, just like the handsome guys in romantic fiction. But honestly, I didn't like the gym all that much. My friend was on the basketball team, so I told him I wanted to join. Yeah, I hated it, but Camilla thought it was very impressive. During my first game, she stood at the side of the court and shouted, "Baby, I love you! Come on! I know you can do it, honey!" OMG, talk about cringeworthy. I knew she was very proud seeing me playing basketball, so it made me full of energy and I just longed for scoring. I was so nervous that I accidentally scored in the wrong net. Suddenly, she disappointedly shouted, "Oh no, Edward would never have embarrassed me like that." And that's when all of my teammates turned to me and laughed frantically, which made me really embarrassed. I threw the ball against the playground and walked to her angrily and asked, "Edward? Who's Edward?" Then I stormed off, leaving her there watching me in shock. I was so sick of being compared with some handsome guy in her fictional world, and sporty things were not an exception. I couldn't take it anymore. The more I participated in sporty things, the more I realized how much I hated them. I pined for computer algorithms. I wasn't a jock, no. I was the nerd who got a thrill from staying up all night writing code. That weekend, probably she wanted to make it up, so she asked me to go to the cinema to see some romance film. I was a bit cooled off, so I agreed. I showed up outside her place to pick her up, and my phone beeped. It was Camilla, telling me she'd be reading all day, now she was too tired to go. Besides, she'd reached the climax of her book, and it was too compelling to put down. I was furious. I stormed back to my place. It felt like Camilla preferred these make-believe guys to me, her actual boyfriend. The next morning, I was still pretty mad. When I explained to Camilla how I felt, she started crying. Then she told me it was my fault for not caring about her last night, as she said she was tired. She wanted a hunk to bring her food, pamper her, and look after her. I couldn't believe what she was saying. Just because I wasn't as dashing as some fictional character guy didn't mean I didn't look after her. How dare she even say otherwise? I know this was crazy, but the problem is I really do love Camilla. So I came to the conclusion that if she wanted some perfect guy, I could be him, right? That evening, after a long day with loads of studying to do, I was about to take a bath, and Camilla texted me, "Bae, I want to eat spaghetti, but it's raining outside." So even though I was tired, I rushed up to buy it for her and brought it to her place. You should have seen her face. She was extremely happy. Seeing her happy made my heart melt. Everything was good, but I ended up being sick. Blech. The next day, Camilla came to my place to look after me. She made me soup and helped me eat it. I ended up falling asleep, and when I woke up, she'd gone. I didn't think that much of this at the time, but then 3 days later, she still hadn't responded to any of my calls or messages. Finally, she answered my call and told me the reason why she was mad. Turns out she imagined herself as the main character in the romantic fiction book she just read. In that story, when the handsome guy got sick and his lover came to visit him, that's when she was feeding him, he kissed her. So she expected me to do the same, only I fell asleep instead. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This was crazy. How could she expect me to be romantic when I was trying my hardest not to throw up? We arranged to meet at a cafe. There I told her how I felt. I just can't do this anymore. I can't be some sporty, handsome, sword-fighting charmer. I'm just a regular, geeky me. Accept me for me or it's over. She apologized and began crying. She told me she just got so carried away with the scenarios in her books that she'd try her hardest to be a better girlfriend. A week passed by and Camilla seemed a little better. Then one time when we were outside the college, she pointed over at this sophomore guy and told me she was going to allow him to pursue her because in most romantic fiction books, the main female character usually had 2 guys competing for her. If I could beat this Zach guy off, then it proves I love her. If not, it must mean I never loved her in the first place. What? I stared at her open-mouthed. She'd definitely gone too far this time. I told Camilla I wasn't playing her dumb games anymore, then I stormed off. The next day I saw her talking to that Zach guy. Whatever he was saying to her was making her laugh, and she was twirling her hair around her finger and giggling. Great. Not only was this guy good-looking, but he was charming too. He resembled a gallant hero, while I was more like the villain. The problem is, I still love Camilla. How can I get her to realize that romance fiction fever is just that, fiction? Even though I might not be some handsome hero who leaves flower petal trails all over the house, I'm still a good guy who just wants to look after her. Hi, it's Arnie here again, just your regular computer-loving nerd. I've come back to tell you more about my story. Here's a quick refresher. I love my girlfriend Camilla, but she's addicted to romantic fiction. At times, it's like she even thinks she lives in one of those novels, which has led to plenty of awkward situations. Then one day she took it too far when she told me she was letting this handsome guy called Zach pursue her. Apparently, if I loved her, I'd fight for her and win her heart, just like the characters in her book did. I ignored Camilla for a full week after that. Then I walked past the basketball court and saw her there. She was watching Zach play, and she cheered and whooped when he scored. My heart flipped. Zach was so handsome, while I was some lanky nerd with messy hair, dowdy clothes, and a bloated belly. I was definitely the underdog in this competition. Feeling discouraged and missing Camilla a lot, I confided in my sister Paula. I guess I expected her to take my side, but instead, she advised me to stand up and take action. If I wanted to get Camilla out of her virtual world, then firstly, I'd have to step into her world to get her back. Paula told me that all girls love romantic fiction, and that Camilla loves them even more than most. So I should discover why she loves them so much by reading some myself. Then I could understand her and help her. Okay, so I guess Paula's plan made sense. But seriously, I was a computer guy, and now I was expected to read soppy books? Still, I'd do whatever it took to win back the heart of Camilla, as I truly do love her. Camilla had left some of her books and mine, so I started reading them. I'm a logical guy, so it didn't take me long to figure out the general format of these books. So I decided to learn from them in order to defeat Zach and win Camilla's heart back. So I derived a plan. The first lesson from these books seemed to be always love yourself first and love will come after. Okay, so maybe I was a bit scruffy. I guess I didn't resemble a guy who loved himself. So I went to the hairdressers, and instead of instructing them to do my usual short all over please cut, this time I asked them to give me more of a suitable and trendy style. Next, I asked Paula to come shopping with me, and she picked out some smart-looking jeans and a couple of nice polo shirts. Now, who said nerds couldn't have style? Finally, I faced my nemesis. Sports. Ugh. If I knew I wanted to have a well-built body, like Zach, then I needed to get fit. So I hit the gym and started jogging. For the first few weeks, I was a sweaty mess. But then I improved and actually found myself enjoying running. One time I was jogging through the park when I saw Camilla sitting on a bench reading. I jogged on the spot in front of her and said, "Hey." She was so shocked when she looked up and saw me that she dropped her book. As I bent down and picked it up for her, I turned around on purpose so she could check out my newly improved butt. I continued running, then peered back and saw her peering over at me from over her book. Talk about success. Now for the second lesson I learned from the reading soppy novels. The heroine should love a guy who she has this undeniable connection with. So finally, after 3 weeks of no messages or calls, I text her. "Camilla, I'd like to say that I accept your challenge and I'll prove my true love for you." The next day I waited outside of Camilla's class and invited her to lunch. To my annoyance, Zach appeared and invited himself along too. In the canteen, I pulled Camilla's chair out for her and told her I'd go pick out some food for her. "And I'll bring it over," Zach butted in. "How about if we both pick food and Camilla chooses which she wants to eat?" I replied. Needless to say, Camilla looked so excited. 2 guys were trying their hardest to impress her. This was a dream to her. I know how much Camilla loves bound salad, so I ordered a massive portion of them for her. And then I also got her a flapjack. While Zach chose some boring chicken fries for her and a massive burger for himself. Camilla looked at both trays of food, then dived straight in for the bound salad. Success again. Although poor Zach looked so disheartened that I even felt sorry for him. Well, almost. Last but not least, the third lesson. Although handsome guys often say cheesy words, that's not the point. What really makes the heroine happy was the feeling of being unique, the only one in someone's heart. Okay, so I have no idea how to say cheesy stuff, but I do truly care about Camilla and think she's a unique and special girl. So I needed to prove this to her, right? I put my plan into action. I showed up outside Camilla's door smartly dressed and holding a massive bouquet of flowers. Camilla appeared and looked flustered as she took the flowers off me. I told her I was taking her to the cinema, but she just blushed and replied, "Sorry, Arnie, I'm meeting Zach there, as I've already arranged to see that movie with him." I felt gutted, but I forced a smile and replied, "Oh, okay, sure. I hope you have a nice time. I'll go with my friend then." But I went home, changed, then went for a jog. Yeah, I know what was happening to me. After that, I felt so frustrated, so I went on my computer for a bit. I couldn't get the thought of Zach and Camilla sharing popcorn and cuddling up together out of my head. I was beginning to think I was wasting my time. And no matter what I did, Camilla would always choose a guy like Zach over me. Suddenly, my phone rang. It was Camilla. She was sobbing and asked where I was. She wanted to see me. Without even thinking, I rushed to her place. Before I could even ask her what was up, she ran into my arms and started kissing me. Okay, this was crazy and unexpected, but good. Very, very good. I made her a grilled cheese sandwich, then we cuddled on the couch. She asked me, "You told me that you'd gone to the cinema with your friend. So why could you be here with me?" I looked at her and said, "Yes, that's what I said, but I just wanted to go there with no one but you." She giggled and kissed me. This all seemed so surreal. And I'd worried I'd read so many romantic fiction books that I was now stuck in one. Then she told me that she'd shown up at the cinema only to find Zach wasn't there. So she'd waited for ages. Then he messaged her saying he was at a party and had forgotten to cancel their date. This proved to her that Zach didn't care about her at all. And it dawned on her that she didn't like him either. She loves me, and she had to see me straight away. From then on, Camilla ignored Zach. She apologized to me for all she'd put me through, and told me that lanky or not, she loved me unconditionally. She also promised to try and stay grounded, and to be not quite as dreamy. and to remember to take breaks to eat during her reading splurges. I know she loves fiction, and I would never ask her to stop reading the books she so loves. But I did ask her to limit her reading. Now she reads 1 book a week. Now things between us are better than ever. She still gets dreamy at times, especially after she's finished her latest book. But we both now realize how much we love each other, and we wouldn't want to be without each other. Besides, whenever she gets in her post-depressive book state, I handle it by being extra romantic toward her. I buy her colorful flowers. I take her on romantic picnics in the park. And I make her breakfast in bed, complete with heart-shaped pancakes. We also reserve one night a month for fantasy date night, where we both pretend to be characters from a romance novel. It's actually great fun, and Camilla loves it. I may be a computer nerd and Camilla a book geek, but that doesn't mean we don't work well together. Prince Charming doesn't have to gallop in on a stallion and have perfect hair. No. Instead, it turns out he can just be a normal, computer-loving nice guy.